we're going to build good web applications, bringing together these bits and pieces. Today, we're going to be talking about introduction to web applications. But before we dive right into the discussion, kindly like the video, subscribe to our channel, and click on the notification bell so that you will be notified as soon as I upload new video contents. So let's get right into this. So the big question is, what is a web application? Okay, I'll be reading from my computer, and I'll be taking it one step at a time. So on Wikipedia here, it says that a web application is an application software that runs on a web server. Let's note the word there, application software. So a web application is a software. It's an application software and it runs where? On a web server. Now, application software is one word, a web server is another word. So we'll come to this. It goes ahead to say, unlike computer-based software programs that are run locally on the operating system of a device, web applications are accessed by the user through a web browser with an active network connection. Now, you see the other aspects of it, the other parts of the definition. It says, unlike the computer-based softwares that run on an operating system. For example, you know how your teams work on your laptop, your Microsoft Word exactly is called a Microsoft Word is the Microsoft Word is a computer-based software. It runs directly on your operating system. It means that you have to install it for you to use it. So it's kind of a contrast here. So a web application is not like the desktop application, right? So a desktop application, for example, the Microsoft Word runs on your computer. You have to install it before it runs. But a web application, you don't have to install it. So it says a web application is an application software that runs on a web server. Now that web server is the key word there. The web server is a web server somewhere, maybe somewhere, some people will say in the cloud, right? But somewhere around the world. Google have Google servers, you understand? So these applications run on their own dedicated servers and maybe distributed around the world. We'll come to that. But it is an application software that runs on a web server. So all you need to run an application software is to have a browser on your device, either on your computer, your laptop, your PC, or your MacBook, or on your phone. Once you have a web browser, you'll be able to run a web application. Now, let me give an instance. Let's say you have a web browser. Let's say Google Chrome or Firefox or Mozilla Firefox or Microsoft Edge. And on your address bar, the top bar where you can type in your URL, you type in something like www.facebook.com. Now that URL you type there is like giving a command to your web browser to get you to go through the internet and get some files from the Facebook domain. Now you are accessing the Facebook domain somewhere on Facebook servers. So after you click on send, as soon as the files are coming, you will now see a good looking blue and whitish designed interface looking like facebook.com, and you see connect with the world or something, and you'll be like, how does this work? How is this thing possible? This thing is like magic. People would be so fascinated by it. It's not magic, it's science. It's just machine codes and programming languages. So that is what we're going to talk about here. So Back to our definition of what a web application is. It went ahead to say these applications, which are web applications, are programmed using a client-server modeled structure. Now, the keyword there is a client-server model, like client and server. The client to the server, they speak to each other, right? Now, the model structure is client-server, meaning the moment you are typing www.facebook on your web, on your browser, you are using the client, which is the browser, and as you're clicking on send, the network connection that goes to a Facebook server and back and displaying to you what you need, what you're expecting to see, is that client-server interaction. The client and the server gets a handshake. So the client is your browser, which you're typing in your www.facebook.com, and the server is somewhere in Facebook. It could be in the US, it could be in Europe, depending on how or where the Facebook server sits. So as soon as you click on send, that request goes to that server, gets the files and displays it to you. So that's what it means by when it says these applications are programmed using a client-server modeled structure. Client and server. Client speaks to the server, server speaks to the client. Because when the client sends a request, the server responds to that request with what the client is asking for. So it says the user, which is the client, is provided services through an off-site server that is hosted by a third party. Now, listen again. The user, which is the client, is provided services through an off-site server that is hosted by a third party. Let's say, for example, with this same example we're using, a client makes that request to Facebook, and Facebook don't have servers. Let's say Google or Amazon has servers, but Facebook hosts their web applications on an Amazon server, which is a third party. Now that request would route to that request would look for that Amazon server, because behind every URL there are things called IP address. Every IP address can be traced back to a URL, to a domain name, and every other thing that is on that domain. So that's what it means when it says the client is provided services through an off-site server that is hosted by a third party. So it went ahead to say examples of commonly used web applications include webmail, online retail sales, online banking, and online auctions. So these are just examples of web applications. So here on this channel, we're going to talk about how you can build your own web application, and people will type your URL on their address bar and see what you want them to see. And you can make sales. You can, if you are a journalist, you have a blog, you can go ahead to write posts on your blog, and people, all they need to do is to type in their URL and see your website or your web applications or your web resume, and read all the contents that you want them to read. If you have payouts, maybe you want to make some sales on your website, we're going to as well go ahead to integrate payment options, where maybe as a speaker you have books that you have authored and you want to as well have the ability to sell these books on your website, such that as soon as someone comes to your website and they see that, okay, he has a good book, let me click on it. Okay, they check the price of the book. Okay, let's say $28, and they click on it. They can input their credit card details in a secure platform and make payments. All you need to do is, while you're in your house, you get the credit alert. Oh, someone just bought another book, and the book is being shipped to them, or they're able to download the book, or however the business logic or the thought process is being made to work. So we're going to build good applications on this platform, and along the way we will understand how to put in this puzzle together to form a good web application. So he didn't know it was going to turn out this way. He had the ability, he knew how to build web applications, at least as far back as when he started it. The technologies to build web applications and were not as sophisticated then as they are now. So he went ahead to create something that people loved, people welcomed, and all of a sudden he found it becoming global, becoming going viral, and that became his defining moment. He turned into a company, and till today he's one of the richest men in the world. So you can learn how to do web applications on this platform. We're going to take you by the hand, take you through everything you need to know. We're going to start with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery, React, Angular. You can name it. And at the end of the day, we're going to build good web applications, bringing together these bits and pieces, bringing them together. Let me give you an instance. Let's say you want to build a house. First of all, you will need to know how blocks are being made, right? You will need to know how to lay those blocks. You will need to know how to make pillars, how to create beams, how to plaster the house, how cement works, the ratio of water to sand that you need to mix with cement for you to get a good mixture, the architectural design of the house. You will need to understand a lot more other things. When you get to the top, you will need to understand how the roof is supposed to be structured. You need to understand that after building your house, that's when you can now, after you've built it, you've plastered it, that's when you can now start putting doors, like making the doors fit in properly. You need to understand, this is just a typical example of how a web application is being built. Now, these bits and bits of a web application such as HTML, CSS, JavaScript, these things can be transcribed or translated to blocks and water and cement for a house. Now, after understanding these modules individually, we're going to bring them all together to build a web application. In the other context, to build a house. Now, after building your web application, we'll go further to securing the web application. Now, if you don't secure the web application, just like the way you secure a house, you would be in your house one day and someone will come in and take your thing while you are sleeping. So when you're finished building your house, you secure your house, you put your gates. After you've done your fencing, you put your gates. Sometimes it doesn't matter at what stage you put this security, but most of the time it is towards the end of your building project. So after we've done our web applications, we're going to secure it. We're going to do authentication and authorization. We're going to do a lot of things that are in the advanced stages of building a web application. And I would really love it if you join us on this train, because it is going to be very inspiring, very insightful, very full of knowledge, and at the end of the day, I can't wait to see what we will build together. So thank you so much, guys, and the next video I'm going to start with HTML and CSS and JavaScript. So look out for the next video, guys, and we'll see you right there. Thank you.